So welcome to Test Development Management. This is where you're going to learn how to write a test case. You are going to see how the test cases are executed. We already talked about bug life cycle, so you might kind of touch base on that a bit. I can demo you on how to execute test runs and what that means. And what does overall test management mean? So we're going to look at that today. Before we start, how do we write a test case? Okay. So, and what is a test case and scenario? Just let's take a look at this one. So, who remembers the STLC stand for? Anybody can answer that question. Just unmute yourself. STLC.
Software testing life cycle.
That's correct. And anybody want to tell me what are the steps in software testing life cycle? What's the first step in software testing life cycle?
To get the requirements.
That will be SDLC.
Okay. So what do we test then planning them?
Correct. So test planning or test strategy, however way you want to say it, is your very first step. So when you have some feature being developed, while you are in a meeting and developers are discussing, you are, as a test automation engineer, you are writing notes, thinking about strategies, what you can do. You are deciding whether the feature can be automated, or is it something that cannot be automated? Shobuz, can you give me an example of a feature that cannot be automated?
The feature that cannot be automated.
What is something that a manual tester will have to do? A human being would have to do that because automation cannot. There's no way to do that for automation. An image.
All right, the capture.
Yes. The background, for example, the background image. Remember the price line? There are a whole bunch of images.
Yeah.
How can we validate whether this is the right image or not? Automation can only look at the file, and it could check the file name, that which file is image file is being displayed on the website, but automation cannot verify whether the image is the right one. Only a human eye can do that. Okay. Right. There are some graphs, charts that are as a display as a image, and there's no way you can look or find the data on the website. Those cannot be automated. What about the sizes of the buttons? What about where they are aligned? Automation cannot, and you need to know this, guys, because they're going to ask you, and they're going to ask you trick questions to see if you really know this. You can deliver your speech perfect on some, and then some easy ones, you panic and you don't say the right things, then they're going to be like, there are some holes there. I can validate whether this word finance is displayed by automation, but a human eye needs to look at and see whether they look beautiful or not. Whether these images are showing up in the right section or not. What if this got moved a bit? Okay. If that got moved, then that's automation cannot pick up. And as a matter of fact, I just picked up a bug a couple of days ago, so let me share that real time.
Okay.
And here's a developer, McIntyre. Where is he? I think I delete. Oh, there you go. That's McIntyre. See this? This is my communication with the developer. He has a weird picture. I don't know why. And I don't even know if this is a guy or a girl.
That's fun.
He does sound like a man. So, but I've never really seen him in person. We just communicate over the Slack. So anyway, this is what he was developing, right? So take a look at this before and after. This is before. So I put a check mark here. And side by side, I showed him that all these other buttons are all good except this one. And he was working on it. Because I'm in the meeting, I know that he was working on it. Look at this. Do you see something wrong? Who can tell me what's wrong with this filter input field versus this right here? Do I need to zoom in a bit more? Maybe too much. Oops. Hold on. Okay. Can you see better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Come on, tell me. Certainly you see something wrong there. Look, compare the left side with the right side.
Yeah, the filter, the actual drop down bar and the search bar thing, the search icon, it's pushed too far to the right. It's actually off of the underlying white border that it should be on.
Correct. The word is
you move back a little bit.
And what I told him is that the filter input field, it's off the grid or this display panel here. Notice it popped out.
Yeah.
So when he was adding this filter right here, sorry, not filter. Only thing he added was this username field, this column. And while he was adding the code to this column right here, something happened that he touched on some settings that messed up this whole thing that went out. It came out of the grid. Okay? This is a bug that you need to talk about when the interviewer asks you, explain some bugs that you caught.
Okay.
You have to every time I will demo you one, you make them as if you discovered it. Understand?
Got it.
Okay. So can I catch this with automation? No. Only a human eye can check to see, oh, something is off the chart here. Okay. With automation, what I can do is I can put something in this input field and I can hit the search button and I can validate to see if the search results contain that information or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Look at this. This is my created automation. The QA automation, I'm putting a random number. You're going to be building this later. I'll show you how to do that. This information I am throwing in with the automation code, and it's coming in here on this table, and automation is also checking to make sure that those unique numbers show up or not. Right now, notice there's a bug right here. Who can tell me what's the bug by looking at these two numbers?
What's the bug?
Yeah, by just looking at these numbers.
Uh, I'm not for sure.
Duplicate. It's supposed to, the record is supposed to post only once.
Got it.
Notice that every time I send out a unique message to this table, it posts twice.
The issue is okay.
2 times right here.
That makes sense. Sorry, I was a little confused.
No problem. But those are some of the things that you're going to catch and you're going to tell the developer. And they have some issues with their code where I send out this message with this unique number and it's supposed to show up in this table. It shows up twice. So those are bugs, and you report those bugs. Okay. All right. Let's get back. Where was I?
You were going over this, yeah.
Right. So test strategy, and I asked you questions about what can be automated, what cannot be automated. So you are thinking about that there are some things, there's a graph coming, there's an image, those going to be automated, and we need to have a manual tester look at that. So I'm going to have to write a test case for that. There are some features can be automated, so I'll write a test case for that and put it on the automation queue so that somebody can automate it. You are thinking about timing, like test schedule, when, how soon do I have to have those test cases? Sometimes your team is going to ask you, well, how soon can you get an automation there? Your answer is always going to be not during the same sprint. Okay. And here's why. You're going to start automating the feature only when the feature is done.
Okay. So you can't do that while they're working on it?
No. Why not? Can you take a guess why not?
If they're working on it. Oh, well, because the code is still ongoing. So for you to test something that's still in the process of being built, but then again, they turn around tomorrow and they edit it, you would have just wasted your time, because I mean, it just takes very small little differences that can totally throw something off, and whatever you automated would be not valid anymore. Correct. So there's no point testing something that's in progress.
Excellent answer. That's so true. So let's say they're working on this particular page here, sales invoices, and they're working on this and they did not add these columns yet, this type column, the message column, or they're probably going to add this this numbering column. But if you create an automation for some of these column numbers checking, and they add this column, guess what? Your automation is going to break because they added something there and it's going to mess it up. Or they may change some things, which is also going to break your automation. And that's going to take extra time for you to fix that automation instead of adding something. So your answer is going to be, hey guys, you guys, when you finish this, until you finish it, we're going to do manual testing. Somebody's going to come in, we're going to have a test case, we're going to have steps, somebody's going to come in and test it. But until you're done with this page, we're not going to start working on the automation. Okay? So when is that going to be approximately? When the sprint ends. So how long typically is a sprint?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So after 2 weeks, we're going to start automating this while we're writing manual test cases for the new feature that I'm going to be working on. Okay. All right. Going back into the presentation. Where was I? Kick me out. Okay. Any questions about test strategy? Okay. The next step is you actually write the test case. Okay. It's called test development in a fancy word, but what you're doing is you're writing up the test case. You are thinking about what data am I going to use? Is there a user that I need who is going to have to log in to check it out. How is the test script going to be? What design of test case am I going to do? And then you actually literally write it out. Okay. There's nothing much to it. The next step from that is you execute it. And execute is basically you test the test case that you wrote. And you look at it and see if there is any defects there. If any, then if you find a defect, what are you supposed to do?
Report.
This is from last class, guys. Sum it up. Come on.
Bug ticket. What is that called?
Bug ticket. You create
yes,
a
bug ticket.
Okay?
Yes.
Or you report a bug. However way you want to say it, you want to use the word bug. And
I said.
Yeah, I know. You did good. And the interviewer is gonna dive into you. As soon as you say or utter a word, be careful, because you know the words that you're gonna choose, the follow-up question is gonna be on those words. But so you kind of sort of also train the interviewer to go in a certain direction. You want to utter those words that you're good at, and you want interviewer to ask you those follow-up questions on those. Okay. So you found a bug, you report a bug, and at this point, the interviewer is going to ask you, can you explain the bug life cycle? And then you have to flash back on the last class and do that and describe that. And they may ask you some clarification questions, and you're going to have to answer that too. So I don't want to get into that too much because I got some concepts to cover here. After you execute the test, meaning you actually test it, you look at the test steps, you go in to the site and you test it. Once you've done testing, you have to report whether it has passed or it failed. Okay? And you report that somewhere. So your test report, your defect, you testing it, all of that involves test execution. Any question about this particular step?
No, not so far.
Okay. The step after that is defect management. So if you filed a bug, somebody's going to fix it. If they fix it, it comes back to you to test it again. And you have to make sure it's fine before you sign off. If not, you send it back. So the whole kind of defect life cycle, bug life cycle is in this defect management you can think of. You got to track it, whether it's in progress or not. You may have to shut down some automation because you know there's a bug, automation picked up a bug and automation is failing. You don't want to keep that failing automation on your test suite. More of that is, you will get more lesson on that in a couple of months. So don't want to go too much into it. Just understand these steps for now. Any questions about defect management? Once all this is done, you deliver and you sign off on it. Okay. It's called delivery. And that's when you're saying, hey, I've tested the feature, everything is done, it's good to go. And now we can release the product, release the software to a UAT team. It's called user acceptance testing, or UAT from the last class. This is where it could be the stakeholders or even a customer. It could be an alpha testing, beta testing. Hint, hint, we covered last week. So those kinds of testing is going to be done not by you anymore. You hand it over and it's a panel of people. They're going to be whoever the customer is, for example, or you do beta testing with end user. So alpha testing with the client who's purchasing the software, and beta testing is with the end user who's going to be selected to for a trial testing. And once that's done and everything, then they're going to release it to all the customers. Okay. This is the phase where the customer is going to verify, make sure that they're getting the right software the way they want it. If something wrong, they can come back and say, no, we don't like this particular way you designed it, and can we fix this? Then it's going to come back to the cycle again from start of test strategy. For that feature change, you're going to go in again, develop a test case for that. You're going to execute that test case. You're going to see if there's a defect, and then you're going to hand it off again saying that it's done. Are you able to see the flow?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Let's watch this video. This is going to show you how to write a test case from planning all the way to writing. So these two steps are going to be covered. Excuse me, go back here. So it's going to be test strategy and test development. Watch this video, then I'm going to take you real life. I will do a test case for you, and then you develop one. I'll give you about 30 minutes. And then we come back and we showcase what we have. So I'll give you some classwork today.
Consider a test scenario to check login functionality. There are many possible variations to check this scenario. Check response on entering a valid agent name and password. Check response on entering an invalid agent name and password. Check response when the agent name is empty and the login button is pressed. And many more. This is nothing but a test case. Test scenarios are rather vague and cover a wide range of possibilities. Testing is all about being very specific, hence we need test cases. Now just consider the test case, check response on entering a valid agent name and password. It's obvious that this test case needs input values, agent name and password. This is nothing but test data. Identifying test data can be time-consuming and may sometimes require creating test data afresh. For that reason, it needs to be documented. Before we proceed, consider a quote from a witty man. To ensure perfect aim, shoot first and call whatever you hit the target. But if you do not live by this philosophy, which I am sure most of you do not, then your test case must have an expected result. For our test case, the expected result would be login should be successful. If expected results are not documented, we may miss out on small differences in calculations and results, which otherwise look okay. Consider this example, where you are calculating monthly pay for an employee, which involves lots of calculations. The need for documenting expected results becomes obvious. Suppose the author of the test case has left the organization, is on vacation, is sick and off duty, or is just very busy with other critical tasks, and you are recently hired and have been asked to execute the test case. Since you are new, it would certainly help to have test steps documented, which in this case would be launch the application, enter an agent name, enter a password, and click OK. You may think that for these simple test steps, documentation is not required. But what if your test steps look something like this? I think the need will become immediately obvious. That apart, your test case may have fields like a precondition, which specifies things which must be in place before the test can run. For our test case, a precondition would be flight reservation application should be installed. Also, your test case may include a post condition, which specifies anything that applies after the test case completes. For our test case, a post condition would be time and date of login is stored in the database. During test case execution, you will document the results observed in the actual results column and may even attach some screenshots. Based on comparison of actual and expected results, assign pass and fail status. This entire table may be created in Word, Excel, or any other test management tool. That's all to test case design. Below you will find links to download a sample test case specification template.
All right, guys, that was a really quick, and there's a lot of information panic not, because I'm going to walk you through this whole thing, okay? So this is the site that we're going to use for our sample testing. Let me log out here. And our first test case that we're going to strategize is going to be this login window. Imagine, suppose you are in a meeting and the requirement is that they're going to have a website, web application where only the first they're going to see is a login page like this. Sometimes this is called a landing page as well. So let me take you up here to open up the Word doc. All right, let me know if I need to zoom in any way so you can see better.
Okay, you're good so far.
All right, awesome. So you are sitting in that meeting and you're now thinking about what you need to do, okay? And our first feature, is this too small? How about this?
Yeah, it's fine. Both are fine.
Okay. So you're thinking about, first thing is feature. What is this feature? Short, you can say login page. Okay? Because you don't know much about it yet. You just know it's a login page for customers to go in. This is all your test planning step. Test strategy or test planning. Whichever word you want to use is fine to your STLC process. Okay. I'm going to give you this as notes so you don't have to write this right now. STLC. All right. So you have a feature, which is login page. You're thinking about test cases or scenarios. Let's think about scenarios. What are some positive, what is a positive test case here? Or positive scenario? Remember the positive testing, negative testing?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So can you give me a positive testing here scenario?
Positive testing would be entering a valid email address and valid password and signed in, and it'll give you a verification that you've signed into your account for whatever it is. Like, for example, TechFiles, you're into your
Correct.
account.
Correct. So in your strategy, you're thinking, what are some combination ways that I can mess around with these things? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First combination is always go for the positive, obvious one. That a valid username and password should be able to sign you in. Okay. And write that. That's whatever comes to you is the name of the scenario. Trust yourself on it. Nobody's gonna say that no, that doesn't sound right, or your scenario title is not good. In fact, a lot of these folks don't know English very well, and they're doing horrible at it because they're kind of like us, they see folks and stuff. So anyway, a good scenario would be valid users should. Always use the word should. It makes things awesome. Valid users should be able to log in. Okay? Well, obviously, then there's a negative one. Shobuz, what would be the negative one? Negative scenario.
The negative scenario would be like cannot authorize you. The user is not authorized, or cannot log in.
Can you say the whole sentence for me? Tell me what to write here.
The negative scenario would be like
invalid.
Yeah. Invalid user ID and password.
Well, invalid users, we could say
you say credentials,
password, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can add that info, username, password, or you could say users. Look, you can say it any way you want to, all right? As long as it makes sense. I could say users with invalid credentials meaning username and password.
Right.
Okay. Then what should I say? Should not what?
Login.
Should not. Let me go to the next line. Should not be able to log in. Okay.
Right.
Can you think of another scenario? What if I don't put
just one or the other?
Yeah, what if I don't put username but put password and then hit sign in? Does it supposed to behave in a certain way? Look at this.
Yeah, it has to have both.
Yeah, so I gotta test that because what if the developer messed up something where if you don't put any email but you put any password, it actually lets you in. And that can happen, folks. These are some security features, and there's a whole lot going on behind these two boxes. And if you're not testing properly and something goes wrong, they're gonna blame the QA person for that. So you want to be very careful. So your next scenario, who wants to give me the scenario?
You want to give it a hit?
Give it a shot.
Okay, I can do it.
Okay.
Next scenario would be users with only password or username should not be able to log in.
Okay, so that's actually two scenarios, Tony.
Okay, so break it down.
Break it down, because you actually literally have to keep this blank, put a password, and hit sign in to see whether this message shows up or not.
Okay, so users with only username and no password should not be able to log in.
Should not be able to log in. Good.
Now, whenever we say users only username, does it matter if we say users with only valid username or is valid necessary?
Not necessary. Does it matter? Not necessary in this case, because even if you have a valid username and you don't have a password, should you let them in?
No.
No. So this is totally fine. And you want to keep it brief and small. Don't want to make it very lengthy. In fact, you could also say, or here's another way to say, let me think. Should display error message. Okay, you can add that in there, like missing email address while login should display error message.
Got it.
Okay. What that is saying, it's essentially, notice both the scenarios are testing the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, a user would have to come in and with missing email address, put the password, or in this case, username with no password. So missing password. While login should display an error message, and this is what you're validating, whether the error message displays. If this doesn't display, you need to talk to your developer, make sure that he adds that there.
You got it.
So you saw that this can be flipped over to another one. which here you're gonna say users with only username and not password should not be able to log in, or missing username. No, I got it the other way around, I think. Users with only password should not be able to log in. Users with missing username. And that's how it's going to go. And users with only username should not be able to log in, or missing password while login should display error message. Kind of negative way or opposite way of putting these sentences, but they both do the same thing. Trick question. Anything else on this page that you see that should be tested and could be tested?
Forgot password.
Forgot password.
The sign-in button.
Sign-in button will be covered when you put a username and password and click on sign-in.
That's
Forgot password. That's correct. So scenario, you know how forgot password feature works. When you click on it, it's going to ask you for a email address. You provide your email address and then you hit reset. So all of these steps have to be covered in your forget password. You're going to get an email in your email inbox. Your automation would have to click on that email, come back, put a new password, reset. The whole thing has to be done through automation or manually. Okay, so that's a big feature, even though it's like a tiny little link. All right, who wants to give me a scenario for that?
Hey, we got this
one. Would it just say user selects or get? How would you phrase that?
Say
clicks for
users should be able to.
Should be able to click forget password. Is that the proper?
You don't.
How would you?
You don't want to use the word click on scenario because it's too specific. A scenario has to be vague in a what is the user supposed to be able to do? Because if you say click, that would go into the test case steps, which we'll be using later.
Should be able to.
Retrieve password.
Retrieve password.
Correct. Or reset password. So users should be able to retrieve, reset, new password. And if you wanted to add saying that through forgot password link, you can, but forget it. It's your test case. You're going to train your folks on knowing what this means. And the steps are going to say click on forgot password. So I don't need to be specific in here.
Okay.
Anything else? Loretta?
What about?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what about just clicking the sign in button with no information? Wouldn't it still pop up the message, or does that matter?
Absolutely. That's very good. Awesome. All right. Looks like you're getting a hang of it. Go ahead. Give me that scenario. Because that's another combination where what if I don't put anything and developer messed it up? I just click sign in and ta-da, we're in the software already. So
it should say, would we put it in a negative way? User with no password or no user or user no password should not be able to log in. Correct. An error message display.
Yes. So one or the other. You can say users with no credentials.
Okay.
Or blank credentials should not be able to log in. That means I didn't put anything in here. And what if I click on sign in? Then, or you can rephrase it. How would you rephrase this?
I'm not sure.
About the error message.
Okay. Error message should display if no credentials have been typed or have not been inputted.
Perfect. So error message should display if no what? Username or password?
Yeah.
If no username and not or and password
The combination
was provided. Good job, folks. I'm really impressed. I mean, you got it. Look, I didn't even expect that we're gonna have that many. It's a tiny little page and you already created 6 scenarios. That's 6 test cases, folks. With just this. Imagine how many you need to do if you go inside this site. With all of these pages, there's a lot. Okay? All right. This is your test planning in action for this site. And any questions on this? Anything we need to clarify? Any confusions?
Not so far.
Not so far. Yeah, so far I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're done with test strategy right here, where we developed different kinds of scenarios and combinations that are possible. Is it happening in the real world? Not really, guys. We're lazy and we're not perfect. So I don't even have an automation to check these kinds of combinations. Okay. Like a username and not a password and sign in. We don't have an automation for it. We just have a valid user should be able to log in the automation. We are so busy going into and validating what new features are coming in, we don't even have time to look at the very basics. So in the interview, don't try to portray that you work for a company that's perfect, because that's gonna sound like it's a setup.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give you some information that you're going to also want to complain about a few things. Okay? They're gonna ask you, what are you dissatisfied with at your current job? You're gonna have to say some things, because that's what will confirm to the interviewer that you have
the pay.
And there's a way to deliver that information. Those I will also go over with you later. But anyway, this is the perfect world, and you don't work in a perfect world.
Got it.
If they tell you what would it be, you can tell them. If they tell you, are you doing that right now in your company? You're gonna say up to a certain point. And there are some situations where it doesn't happen. We're short of time, we're short of people, and we're focusing on what's coming in. So those are still in our list that needs to be automated, but we're just not there yet. Okay. All right. Next step is, how do I test this? You are actually it's not how do I test it, but developing the test case. You do have to think about the steps of it, which is how, answering how. So far, you just answered what to be tested. Okay. And now we're going to go into the test development how to be tested. Okay. Now, the classic way of writing a test case, it's a you use table. So you use insert table. And I don't know what your company is going to have, but I'm going to have to teach you 2 different ways, and it's going to be one or the other, right? So let me add a whole bunch of these columns here first. And I'm probably not going to need all of them. And let me zoom in here. We don't need this website, not so much. I'll keep it there for a little bit in case. All right. So we take our first scenario. We can write scenario here. I may need to write a little bit smaller. Can you still see?
Yeah, you can.
All right, awesome. So let's take this first scenario. We're not going to write all of this, but we're going to take this scenario 1, right? And copy that. Look, guys, to certain extent, this format of this test case is going to depend on your company preference. If your company wants to put scenario title here, and maybe just put number, that's up to your test lead. That's the scenario 1. And scenario title, valid users should be able to log in, should go here. All right. That's your company policy. You have to adapt to it, and you can probably ask them to improve if you see room for improvement. But it may happen that your test lead may say, we don't need this column. Why don't we just put right here, number 1? Okay, that's your company style.
Got it.
Go ahead. With me so far?
Yes.
So if they don't want this column as extra column, then they don't need it. There's no in any book where it says you have to have something. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete this, but I'm just wanted to tell you that it's totally arbitrary to a certain extent for this test case development. It really depends on different company and different style. But they are going to ask you, first of all, there's a standard style that you have to follow. They're going to ask you about it. They're going to ask you, what do you use in your company? And you can kind of change things up a little bit, okay? You can say that, hey, the standard style is supposed to use this, but in my company use this, or so. But anyway, let me delete that for now. I think that's going to be just too much, so we'll just delete this cell. Column, all right, and I actually deleted the wrong thing here. A second. I just want to delete this column, delete entire column, and now I have scenario. Your next thing is your test case or prerequisite, sorry, precondition. Right. And I'm not gonna go through what the video showed. It's just too many, but I'm just gonna tell you a very selective one. And if you deliver this one, it's gonna be easier for you to present, and the interviewer is gonna like it. They don't want too complications. Okay, but there are very elaborate ones too. At least what you need to tell the developer is, we have the scenario and precondition. And precondition is, let's say, username. All right, and that's TechFiles demo. That's the username and password. ABC123. That's your precondition that a tester will need to know this ahead of time. Right? Precondition could be also test data. You saw in the other video they had a column called test data. You can have it in a separate column. That's too much. You can have test data here. As a matter of fact, this is test data. You may have some other data, and then you can list your data in here, whatever that is. Let's say account number. If you need to look into somebody's account and you have a sample account number they gave you, you may need that data. Okay? Any question about precondition?
No, not so far.
All right. Again, not the most important step, but they're gonna ask you and you say, well, I have preconditions, and if they and say that generally in preconditions, we're listing if there's a special username, there's an account number, that could be order number, things like that. Even as simple as which website to go to. So the web address. For example, yahoo.com, that you need to go to yahoo.com. That could be a precondition. Okay. The most important in a test case is your test steps. Test steps. Okay. So we have this valid users should be able to log in. Let's brainstorm some test steps here. Shobus, what's the first step? Step 1 on testing this site with valid users.
Input the valid user ID.
Correct. In some ways, you can also say go to the site. Okay. And you can provide that URL for that site even before you start anything. So go to that site. Pretty big. Reduce it down to 8. All right. And then your step 2 is, in short, you can write, what was that you said? Valid?
I said input valid user ID.
Excellent. That's a good word to use. Input valid user, in this case, email address. So you can say email address. Okay. Haley, what's the next step? Let's say I input valid user, which is techfilesdemo@gmail.com.
What's the step after that?
Oh, it's a step. Input valid password.
Correct. Input valid password. Which again, I have the password right here in precondition, which is ABC123. This one, what's the next step? I put email.
Go for sign in.
Yes. So click sign in button. Over here, guys, you want to be as specific, as simple as possible. All right? As simple, specific. Somebody want to read this quick, fast, easy, and execute the steps. That's it. You don't have to be fancy. Okay? Any other steps needed for this scenario?
No.
Correct. That's it. If we click sign in, and there we have it.
Uh-huh.
We were able to log in. Okay. Any question about test steps?
No.
Okay. Next thing that's important is it's called expected results. Let me delete some of these. I think I had too many. Delete cells. Expand this a little bit. Expected result. Now, every single one of these steps should have an expected result. So, Loretta, how many expected results should I have?
4.
4, correct. The expected result for this go to site deckfiles.com, you could say deckfiles site should display. Okay. For input valid username, let me go back in here. The expected result is, notice it could happen that you're trying to input something, it doesn't even take it. So the expected behavior, that input button, input field, email should be entered. Okay. Email should be inserted. Again, however way you want to say it, there's no right or wrong. You said that because your expectation is that if I am typing email, that it's gonna allow me to type that email. Sometimes it fails right here, guys. You're gonna see this input field, you're not able to type anything in there. That's a bug. It's a real bug. Anyway, Haley, can you give me the third one for this? Input valid password. What will be the expected result? Yeah. Password?
Yes, you. Okay. Password should be inserted.
Should be inserted.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's look, guys, I am just taking these words and just repeating in here in a different way with the word should. And that's the key thing that you need to know. And B, for number 4, click sign in button. Over here, you could say that the button should be clicked, but you have something bigger right here. What happens after I click the button?
Should prompt you to your account.
Correct. Or in other words, this dashboard, user dashboard should play. So that would be your expected condition.
Got it.
Expected condition. So user dashboard should display. Okay. And the next step, it's pretty tedious, as you can see. We don't use this strategy in our company.
There is a bug over there.
Which one?
Display.
Yes. That's right. Thank you. The other is actual results. Okay. And as you can understand, that it's going to go in for what happened. And this is where the tester is going to execute and write down what really happened. And this one is pass or fail. And because we have a precondition, there could be a post condition. And that would go in somewhere, anywhere you want to. I'm not going to add this there. I just want you to know that there could be one. You don't have to say it, or you say it, but your company is probably going to streamline this because that's too much. It's too much to write. So most folks are going to skip this. As a matter of fact, this column might be there, and your next test case or scenario may not, you don't even have to do this. You may have to just copy paste it down here. Okay. So let me add a row below here. Your next scenario is going to go in here. Okay. Before I go to actual results, I want to do one more to you. Let's pick something from here. User with only username should not be able to log in. So we take this scenario. Again, panic not, because as you keep practicing, this is going to become like piece of cake for you. Notice how easy it was for me to just copy paste it, because you already have scenarios written. You don't need to do that anymore. Look, precondition, same. And I'm just going to put the real precondition here. Actual website is web address that. And I don't have to mention this here anymore, because I'm saying go to the site. Whoever's testing it will be able to see what site that is. And I'm going to copy this precondition from here. Control C, copy. Control V, paste. This is where I have to work. These two. This is where, when the test is being executed, we'll get to that shortly. But let's write down the test steps. Go ahead, Tony. What's the first step that I should do here? Step 1.
Go to TechFile's website.
Correct. So it's just copying that again. Notice.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So look, it's getting easier and easier for me already. Number 2, Shobuz, what will be my next step? This one says users with only username, meaning only using username, no password, and hit sign in. So what's my next step? I went to the site already. Step 2.
The same, like a valid input valid user.
Correct. So you are also inputting a valid user. Okay. Just one. Yeah. Step 3.
Keep blank that password.
So that's actually, you don't even have to keep it blank. It's already blank, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have to do anything, you don't have to write it in the steps. What would you do next? You already entered the email.
Click sign in button.
Correct. So you are actually jumping the step right now and saying click sign in button. Okay. Is there any other steps left?
No.
Good. No more steps. Now, expected condition. Haley, what's the expected condition on the first one? If I go to the site, it's the exact same thing. The TechFile site will display. Lorna, what's the expected condition for input valid user address?
Email should be inserted.
Email should be inserted, correct. Okay. And step 3, here's what happened. Username, valid, password, blank, click sign in. What's the expected condition here after clicking sign in?
User dash
Invalid user password. Password.
Invalid username or password. What?
Should be displayed.
Password
Yeah.
message should be displayed. Done. Any questions?
Yeah.
You just wrote, this is just, that's the first thing as a test case. This is a full test case here. Okay. Now, anybody taking this and testing it, they have to reflect their information in here. Okay?
Got it.
Either you do it or in your absence, somebody else do it. They must have this information. If you don't write it in detail like this, people are going to be confused. And honestly, you may join a company that they never got a good training like this. So in my company I joined, she didn't even write up anything. She said that it's all in her head. So she was just telling me what to do verbally. And I'm like, come on. Where's the test case? She's like, we don't have a test case. She just wrote down these scenarios, not even in a proper scenario format on a piece of paper somewhere. And she doesn't have any of these steps written down. Okay. So this is the perfect world. And if yours is not, you go change your company to something better. Okay. Anyway, now that we know what a test case is, we're going to take this and go to the next step of actually executing it. All right. So let me copy this here. And when I talked about test run, anytime somebody reflect or actually execute, the list of test cases that shows up is called the test run. More of that later. Test execution. And this is where somebody will be actually testing it and reflecting in here. So let's go in. Here I am, a manual tester. I'm reading this. I'm like, valid user should be able to log in. This is my first time. It says go to this site. I'm like, which site? Okay, precondition has this site. Let me go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to open up a browser, brand new browser. And I'm going to hold it side by side. And I'm going to take this, copy this site, and go to my site. And go into the site. And my expected condition, it says text file site should display. And I'm looking at this text file symbol and I'm like, yeah, it displayed. Okay. Then I'm reflecting right here. I'm writing actual result, text files site displayed. Okay, you're probably thinking, my goodness, I have to write all that. Number 2, it said input valid user email, which is right here in the precondition. So I copied that, put it here. I did that. What does it say expected? Email should be inserted. Yeah, it inserted. I can just write email entered. Or, yeah, entered email. Or email entered. Inserted. Whatever. Next step, input field, input valid password. So here's password. What's the password? Oh, precondition has this. Let me take that. Go in here. Do that. Okay. And Password was there. All right. Expected condition, password should be inserted. Yeah. Actual password was inserted. Okay. My step 4, click sign in button. So I click sign in button. Let me see what happens. What is the expected condition? User dashboard should display. So I'm looking right here and I see a dashboard. I'm looking for where's the user. I click here and edit profile, maybe. I can click there just to double check. I'm just doing it myself. Test is not asking me to do that, but I see that was the user I had entered, and that's the user is showing. So it's all good. I would say step 4, dashboard displayed. That's actual. All right. And now my response on this is pass or fail.
Yes.
Pass. I'm done. Okay. Any question on these steps?
No.
Okay.
No.
If you're thinking, do I have to write all of that for every single test case and every time a software is deployed? No. There is a better way to do this. It's not manual like this anymore. And that's why you downloaded that software from last week's homework. That software is going to make things a click of a button. And I'll take you there and show you how that's done. All of this is going to be written once. You'll just write this once. And the software is going to take it and give you a button for it that, hey, you want to test these steps? Here are the steps. You test it. You don't even have to write these actual results. What happened? You just click on pass or fail. Now, if you click on fail, it's going to ask you, do you want to put a comment there? It would be nice if you put a comment why it failed and what you saw. Sometimes you take a screenshot and post it there, and it allows you to do that as well. More of that later. Any questions about how to execute these test cases?
No.
Let's look at a fail scenario and we'll take a break. So if I go to, suppose I'm testing this scenario here. It says go to Tech5 site. I went, and Tech5 site displayed. Got that. Input valid email address. Let me take that. And I'm now a little bit faster because I don't have to copy this here. My computer picked up and I already know what to do. You're going to get faster and faster at your company while you keep doing this. This is going to become your second nature. You can do this blindfolded after. So I did that. Next step, oh, no password at all. Okay, let me delete that. And this is click sign in button. Well, of course, if I click sign in button, it's going to show me the message. But what if, let me just copy this here first. What if I click sign in button and it takes me to the dashboard? Okay, I'm just faking this situation. One day you do that and a developer messed up and your actual result expected was invalid username or password message should be displayed, but it didn't display. And it took you back in the dashboard. So you're going to say dashboard was displayed, but that's a bad thing. You don't want the dashboard to be displayed here. You want the software to kick out the user. That means what's going to happen to this test case? Pass or fail?
Fail.
It's going to fail.
Fail.
Okay. So basically, this was like the classic way of doing things before all these softwares came out. Softwares took this format of people doing this and made it more classy and easy, reporting better. Before, you would have like 100 of these rows, one after another. So let's see. Insert another row below. And there would be more and more of these. Okay? And you would have to look through all of these pass or fail one after another in a paper pencil. Then it was Microsoft Word or Excel. They would look at the Excel sheet with all of these pass or fail. Somebody with a mad genius would say, okay, I can take this pass or fail and create a percent and report it in a percent. Well, forget all that. Now we have softwares to do all of these in a really fancy way. Let me just show you how in a real quick gist of it. This is my company, TestRail. And here's a test run that we did recently. These are the scenarios, folks. Okay. These are the scenarios. And these scenarios, we have certain things. We have the test case ID, that's our company specific. We decided to have something like that number. We have people who is testing it, or the team. Ivan is one of my colleagues who tested this. Rhythmos is a company in India who's testing this for me. And they put pass or fail. Look, these are some of the options that can be real-time selected and posted. All of these are in here. Then you're asking, where are the test steps? Well, if I click on this scenario, it's going to take me to the test steps. It's not doing it right now. Hold on a second, because this is just a report. Let me see if this shows me. Right there. Okay, don't go here. I didn't teach you this yet. So these are my test steps on telling me how to do what. Okay, this is called Gherkin, which I'm going to teach you in shortly today. We don't use this other classic way of writing. It's very cumbersome, and that's why we don't do that. But another beautiful thing, notice, look at this chart right here. The software automatically calculates that 28 test cases passed. That's 88%, and 6% fail, which is 2 test cases, and 2 test cases blocked meaning for some reason they couldn't test it, or maybe that feature is not ready yet, but the test case showed up there. Maybe irrelevant. We don't look at that. We look at what failed. And I don't have to go through the whole thing to look at fail. I can sort it out by saying, give me all the failed right here. So I could just look at failed, or I could say status filter, status, give me just failed. And it will only give me those 2 test cases. One is right here, and the other is right here, failed, and I could click open and see why failed. This person did not tell me why, didn't even write it down for me, but it would be nice if they wrote down why it failed. With me so far?
Yes.
Okay. You will get a chance of hands-on working on this throughout the training that we're going to have going forward. Right now, I would like to come back to this drawing board and give you a bit of a task for you to do to see if you are able to do this. Let's go into a homework. Let's take about 30 minutes. Where was I? All right. I'm going to post this scenarios right here. You get to choose a scenario and write up a test case for me. And your test case scenarios are going to be in this presentation channel. notice in the chat. Do you see it? On the meeting window,
Yes.
to the right side, there's a chat icon.
Yes, I see it.
Okay, inside the chat, I pasted the scenarios for you.
Mm-hmm.
Pick a scenario that I did not cover. There's 6 of them. I covered 2 of them in here. I'm going to leave this open. Any of you need help how to insert a table in a Word document? Or do you all know how to do that?
Yeah.
Desmond Trabus, do you know how to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So copy the style, not the word for word. I mean, you can copy these things as well, like input value, username, and stuff like that. Okay, that's okay. I want you to write this. Take 30 minutes. It's not going to take you 30 minutes, but if you need to use a break or something, do that at that time. Give me any one of these scenarios other than the ones that I already wrote here. And after 30 minutes, we'll meet back up, and I want to demo yours through the presentation and show what you got. Okay. Any questions before we start the break, or any clarification on what you have to do?
No.
All right. Then let's meet back up at 12 o'clock.
All right. Username, password, and the account was the same thing that we had previously. Copy that. So test steps. Step 1 should be go to TechFiles website. Step 2 should be input valid password in the password field. And step 3 should be click sign in button. So for expected conditions, for 1, TechFiles website should open. For the second one, should allow for valid password to be entered. And for the third one, sign in should be denied, and there should be an error message that should appear.
Very nice.
And then obviously we can test it then with the actual results, and we can see if it passes and fails.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very nice. So did it take you the 30 minutes time, or is it...
No, it took me about, I don't know, a little bit less than 10 minutes.
Nice.
Most was kind of copying and creating the table.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it was that one.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Tony. What's next? Who's next?
I can do it.
All right, Haley, let me make you the presenter. No, this one. Okay, it should ask you for their sort of link. Okay. Yep, we can see it. I like the fact that you're using Google Drive. That's nice.
Thank you. My scenario, I believe was the 5th one. I put users with blank credentials should not be able to log in, or missing username and password while login should display error message. And then I just inputted obviously the preconditions, and my test steps were go to the site and click sign in button because they're not typing in any information.
Right.
And so the expected condition should be that the TechFiles site displays, but no credentials are inserted, and that the error message displayed.
Very nice. One thing to notice that you have two steps, but you have 3 expected conditions.
Okay.
It's actually nice. You have 2 different conditions here. Your expected conditions, one is no credential should be inserted, That can be also automated. You could put in an automation where you can see that as you go into that site, automatically there should not be any credentials show up. So that could be a good validation. And the third, error message should display after you click a button without any credentials. That's also a very good validation. The fact that you went in and added 2 validations here, this will come in handy later on, and you will see that there is no limit to how many ways you can validate. And the more the better. But sometimes our time is limited, so we end up just doing the bare bone minimum. But this is very good. Thanks, Haley.
So was there anything that I needed to change since I had 3 expected conditions?
Not at all. Actually, this is very nice because it doesn't necessarily mean that you should have 2 steps. And if you have 2 steps, you have to have 2 expected conditions, or it cannot be more.
Okay.
More expected conditions you have, the better.
Okay.
Because all you're adding is validation here. So if the tester goes in and validates more than one thing, of course it's going to be better for the company. But do we always do it? Nah, we're always like doing the bare minimum. So, but this is a good thing. And if you want to go further and add more, you can add more validations to it. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks, Haley.
Thank you.
How about Shogun or Desmond?
Yeah, I can. You can make me present.
All right, Shogun, you're on.
Okay, so I did the same thing that Haley did. I choose the users with a blank credential, should not able to log in.
Okay.
And so there I choose the same precondition, like go to this URL and user ID should be blank and password should be blank. And the test steps is the same. Go to the URL, leave the user ID field empty, and leave the password field empty, then click sign in. And the expected condition will be website, this URL will load. Then the options for the insert valid user and ID should be there. And the expected condition will be that it will show the error message. Error message should display.
Yeah.
So when we do the test, we found that the insert valid user ID and password is showing the actual results, so it is pass. And the same precondition and the test steps and expected conditions meet the same. And if the dashboard is showing, then the test case will be failed.
Very nice. And guys, if you notice, he abbreviated some of those things, like the user ID, he wrote UID, password field, he wrote PWD. This is nice.
Okay.
There is nowhere it says that you can't write it in short, or there has to be a specific way of writing this. There is no rule. The only rule to follow is whatever works for your team. If it's easier for you to write shorter and your team gets it, that's all that matters. Okay? Very good job, Shobos. How about Desmond?
Yep.
There you go. Okay, we can see it.
Can I say it?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, I choose the without credential. Yeah, and precondition is yahoo.com.
Okay.
The test steps is first go to the site, then without credential just press sign in.
Yeah.
and the expected is your site should display.
Yeah.
And there is no credential, so user and dashboard should not be displayed.
Correct.
And actual your display user dashboard not showing.
Yeah. And if you do test it, then you have the actual result and pass or fail. Actual result and pass or fail, this field will always be blank, but every time you execute the test case, that's when you reflect on it. It's kind of like you copy this whole thing every time you do a test run, and then you reflect and you write in it every time. But the rest of the fields, like the scenario column, the precondition column, the test steps column, and expected conditions columns, once you write it, you're done. You don't have to write anything on it anymore. And that test case will be used by testers over and over, even when you're gone from the company. Hey team, very good job. Any questions on this before we move on?
No, so far.
Okay, awesome. Let me take back the presentation. All right. Real quickly, I'm going to write the test steps for the last one, which nobody really picked. Do you know which one I'm talking about? It's
the reset password.
The reset password. Right. Now that one is a bit tricky, so I'm going to take that. User should be able to retrieve or reset password. So if you were to do that, what would you do here? You don't really need precondition other than which site to go to. Okay. And as we do this, we're going to execute our test steps. Bring this down here. Log out. Okay. Here's my test steps. Same thing. Go to site or go to TechFile site. 2. Tony, tell me what's my next step.
Click forget password link.
Correct.
Button, whatever you want to call it.
Password. I would like the word link.
Okay.
Because that's how it's appearing. So it's really nice.
Yeah.
You're one step ahead of class. Basically, those are the names of the elements that I teach later on.
Okay.
We did forgot password link. Once we do that, Shobos, give me next step.
Then we need to insert email address.
So you would say the word type?
Yeah, type email address.
Type email address, okay? And Desmond, give me next step.
Then click the reset password.
Click reset password. Button. Button is the name of the element. It's nice to give action and what element on the button. So if I do email techfiles@gmail.com and click reset password button, in a real situation, real world, you would receive an email, yes?
Yes.
With a link in your email to reset the password. So here's what you're gonna do. you clicked on reset password button. Notice there's a bug here, it failed. But the test case would look like this. Go to email account. Now there may be a lot of steps in just doing that, going to email account. But we're not going to write the details here. Click on the reset password link in the email. 7. A window would pop up like this with say it's gonna say new password, re-enter new password. Do you remember seeing something like this for anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Click on the reset password link in the email. Enter new password. And then re-enter new password. Given that the passwords both are matching, it's supposed to say success or failure. Okay. And then there may be a submit button. So you might say click on the submit button. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Now let's look at what is expected. So I'm going to skip some things here, because now that you understand the gist of this test case, you can actually summarize this. And kind of like what Haley did, it was added 2 extra validations or expected conditions. You can beef up on some expected conditions and add extra, and some things you can cut down. Like for example, you already know that on this test case, you have validated go to the site and expected conditional TechFi site was displayed. Somebody already checked it. You don't need to write that here again. It's a waste of time for somebody to, I mean, it's automatic. You already know. So stop writing it. But nobody, no test case really clicked on click forgot password link. This is the first first test case using that. So have an expected condition here, okay? So click forgot password link. If I click on it, then expected condition is a reset password window should display. Or enter, I mean, you make it up. Enter email field should display. Okay. Then you enter the email, which is this one. And if I hit reset password, the expected, well, this passed this time, that success message, check your email for password, or you can say check your email to reset password should, message should display, MSG, short, message should display. All right. Next, you have gone into your account and you click on the link. What is expected here when you click on the link?
To redirect you to a reset password page.
Correct. So, Tony, tell me. Expected condition, reroute it.
Sorry. Yeah. Rerouted to reset password page.
Password page. Good job. 5. You went to reset password page. You entered two valid,
Yes.
two matching two matching password. Do you see that this is a positive test case?
Yes.
Can you tell me a scenario where this could become a negative scenario and we could have another test case here?
Yeah. When they're not
they
the
didn't
same.
match.
They didn't
Yeah.
match. Yeah.
Exactly. And you gotta test that. I'm sorry. But the software engineers, they're not magicians and they're gonna break things. So if they didn't put a logic to compare or their logic is not good in the code, you put two unmatching ones and it might work. And that might cause a serious issue later on. The customer is gonna not gonna know which one they did, and they may or may not be able to log in, and company is gonna get like thousands of calls that my username and my password is not working. So it could become a mess. You have to keep looking at it. Every time it's like a tree. It might branch out and become another test case. We have this test case, by the way. I created an automation for entering valid ones and matching ones and entering non-matching ones to see if it fails or if it lets you log in or reset it. Anyway, this one, you are assuming that you are providing matching password. What is the expected result here? Something like success message, okay? So it would be a generic success message should display. I don't know what message for your company. You fill in the blanks. Right? Okay. If you want to go farther and validate, you actually have to come back into that login page and put in your new password and check. Then you have to add more steps, which I have. Then I have step number 10. Go back to the login page. 11. And this time I'm not gonna write everything like, oh, type in an email, type in a password. Then I'm just gonna say in summary, login with new password. With me so far? You see how we're kind of bending and flexing and writing in shorter, but it makes sense. If it makes sense, do it. There is no rules again, but you want to keep it small and simple. Okay. So now we said go back to the login page, log in with the new password. I'm not gonna say go back to the login page and I'm gonna say, oh, login page should display. Forget it. It's intuitive. I should see the login page anyway. I don't need to write that anymore. But what do I need to check? Whether the new password will let me log in or not. And that's my validation here. User should be able to, or dashboard page should display. Page should display. That's it. In a way, you are assuming, when you say dashboard page should display, you are already assuming that the new password that you changed it to is working and it's taking you to where it's supposed to. Does that make sense? Question, guys?
No.
No.
Any clarification needed on this?
No, it was pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. I think you got this. You're going to get more chances to practice when we're going to automate. Guys, we are going to automate these steps, by the way.
Okay.
So in about 2.5 months, when I'm going to introduce Selenium to you, we're going to come back to these test cases that you created today for this login page. I'm going to teach you code. You're going to see the code in front of your eyes, opening up the websites and how they're going to go through the typing in automatically. And every single one of these steps will be done magically in front of your eyes when I introduce that technology to you. Okay? Let's move on. That's the classic way of writing a test case. It's becoming obsolete though, but not a lot of companies know the new ones. And I'm about to show you the new way of writing a test case. Okay. So let me go to that site. See, where do I have it? Yes. It's called Gherkin. All right, Gherkin is basically a word for miniature pickling cucumbers. Okay, cucumbers are big, but gherkins are small. Somebody decided to name this Gherkin. This test writing strategy called Gherkin. Some pronounce it Jerkins, but I've seen in the industry most folks at a higher level they say Gherkin. I don't know what's right or wrong, but I recommend just say Gherkin. And then little history of it. The individual who designed this and the reason they named it is because you're going to see a technology, a tool called Cucumber. And that's where you're going to use this test case writing strategy into automation. Java is going to be integrated with this Cucumber tool that uses this technique. And so whoever created that decided, okay, if that is Cucumber, which is like a bigger version of Gherkin, then the test case writing, which is a manual test case writing, let me call that then smaller Cucumber, which is Gherkin. Okay. So that was the kind of reasoning behind it. So right now I'm going to teach you Gherkin, which is like a pickling cucumber. And then 2.5 months later, I'm going to teach you Cucumber. And that's the tool that is going to automate your test case for you. All right. You are going to need to know these words. The interviewers are going to ask you for it. I kid you not, maybe 30% population in this software testing industry knows about or even knows how to write a test case using Gherkin. I just happen to be one of those lucky ones that fell under a company that is highly invested into this technology, and this is like the new wave, and every company wants to convert to this, but they don't have people skillful enough. As a matter of fact, when I went to interviews myself, I didn't know what Gherkin was. I didn't know what Cucumber was. And there were interview questions and I didn't know how to answer. As a matter of fact, this company hired me and I told them I'm not familiar with this. And my boss just told me later on that it's okay that you said that you didn't know Gherkin and Cucumber, but I didn't care. I thought that you are kind of the person that I can work with you and I can train you on it. But imagine if you are in the market and you can talk about Gherkin and Cucumber. Oh man, they're gonna jump all over you. So just to tell you how important this is. Anyway, before we go into actually physically writing a test case, I just want to talk about a couple of things about Gherkin. Gherkin is for software test automation. It's no longer a pickling cucumber. It is a business readable language. Okay, it is kind of like a programming language, but it's much more human readable. it uses to express the system's behavior, meaning what is the feature supposed to do, such as login feature, forgot password feature. Okay, those are features. Those are some things that users can do as a feature, and you describe that feature's behavior. How is it supposed to behave? Okay. And these are some of the things you need to say when the interviewer asks you, what is Gherkin? You have to say it's a readable language that can be integrated with automation tool to express the system's behavior. So I want you to memorize these bullets, and I don't care how you say it. And every time you ask me about Gherkin, I'm gonna mention most of these bullets, but my paragraph will never be the same. It will always be different, always gonna sound unique, and I want you to do that as well. Gherkin is what is integrated with Cucumber tool so that you can write a test case kind of like English, but Java is going to pick that up and integrate a whole bunch of messy code with it. That's what Gherkin is for. It makes Java much more readable and easy for people to integrate things. And Gherkin consists of 10 keywords. That's it, guys. You don't have to memorize a lot, and there's only 10 words. If you know those 10 words, you got the language covered. And I'm about to show you shortly. Now, if you remember, for SDLC or Software Development Lifecycle, one of the first steps in there was requirement analysis. Okay, you have to analyze the requirement, and then you have to design the how you're going to develop it. So when you analyze the requirement, those requirements have to be written down somewhere for somebody to work on it. And that's this requirements right here. Let me just take you here. 1 second. Yes, dev. These are requirements, guys. This product backlog. Let me take it to current sprint. A developer is supposed to develop these requirements. And this is just the title of the requirement. Now, if I click open one of these to take a look at it, let me open this up in a new window. Oops, not here. That one. Yeah, this one. This is the requirement title right here. Add new Soteria data service to ISC gateway. Look at this. I don't understand a thing about what they wrote here. Okay, and this is how it has been, because these folks who wrote this is our business analyst. Her name is Claire. She was never trained on Gherkin, so she doesn't really know how to write this. She has been in the market for almost like 25 years though. But she picked up on her own style of writing what the developer is supposed to do. Ideally, this is not how it's supposed to be written. It's supposed to be written in a way that everybody can understand. And Gherkin is the latest technology, best way of writing this requirement or description. What is this feature supposed to do? And there's a format to it. And the format is basically, it's going to be written like this. As a, I want, so that. Okay, and I'll give you an example shortly, so this will all fall in place. And we're going to come back and I'll ask you spiral questions on these, like how do you write a requirement using Gherkin? You're going to say we use the keywords as a, I want, so that. Okay, and I'll give you an example shortly. The test cases are not written like this anymore. As a matter of fact, these Gherkin test cases are much simpler. The only 3 words that you are going to need, or actually 4, I would add, excuse me, one second. I would add one more word here, but it's given, when, then. Okay. These are the 3 main ones. Other ones, if you don't mention, that's fine. Given, when, and then. Those are the 3 words that you need to know, and I'll give you a rundown shortly. Just one second. Let's take a look at these 10 keywords that Gherkin uses. One is feature. You already know what that is. We've been talking about feature. You know what scenario is. We've been developing that. Given is the precondition. You know this precondition column right here? Y'all are pretty quiet.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, understood.
All right. Do give me feedback, and you can keep the mic open. That's okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Instead of this precondition column right here with username and password, that is covered in Gherkin under given section.
Okay.
With this keyword. And notice something about this test case. What is the essential difference between this step, click sign in button, and this statement and this statement? Click sign in button and invalid username or password should be displayed. What is the difference between these 2 statements? What do you think?
One is the effect of the other.
Absolutely. Very good. One is the action.
Mm-hmm.
The other is the effect. Or I want you to use the word action versus validation.
Actually, about it.
Gherkin, in Gherkin strategy, you have 2 things. One is action, and the other is validation.
Okay.
Validation, you can use the word verification sometimes.
A reaction.
Reaction, correct. Reaction. So you got an action and reaction. So in Gherkin, when you use the word, when anytime you want to describe an action, you use the word when.
Okay. So when?
Just to write this, the precondition that we talked about, what word do we use for precondition?
Given.
Given, yeah. So for precondition, we're going to use the word given. And for action, we're going to use the word when. And for validation, whenever you're validating, meaning what comes after the action, in fact, every action should be validated, which you saw earlier. Our first test case, when we went to go to the site, we validated the site by saying TechFiles site should display. We checked it, made sure it did display. We inputted valid email address, and we made sure that field was accepting that email address, that at least that input field wasn't like blocked out. Have you ever seen an input field? Sometimes it's like grayed out. You can't even type something to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that could be a bug. So you gotta keep an eye out for that. Your automation has to test that too. So that's another thing that you need to check. So every single action had a validation to a certain point. We're doing the same thing here. For validation, we're going to use the word then. And just like Haley added 2 validations, when you have 2 validations and you want to put, instead of writing 2 of them back to back, you use the word and.
And
Okay. Now let me show you how to write this. So let me take any one of this test case and we're going to convert it into a Gherkin test case. Okay. Or a Gherkin scenario. I'm going to take the difficult one. Forgot password. And I want to go in here and change this into a Gherkin. Let me bring this down here. Line spacing single. And that. All right, take a look at this. I don't need Microsoft Word anymore. I can use a notepad. Let me use this regular notepad. Not that one.
I think better use the Google Docs.
Google Docs is also nice. Yes, I would use the Google Docs for my company so that I'm not losing anything. Right now, just for quick access, let me just use this, given the fact that I can maybe enlarge this enough so you can see. It looks like you can see now. Is this better?
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. All right. So this is your classic test case steps. And here's Gherkin. You only know a certain number of words. How are you going to do that? Here it goes. First, we know the prerequisite. So you always start with scenario. Okay? And you put a colon, This colon matters, guys. When I'm gonna make you automate the test case, if you take out this colon, its test case will fail.
Yeah.
So you put a colon and then a space. This has to be capitalized. If you give a lowercase, it's gonna fail. I'm gonna go up there, copy the test scenario, which is user should be able to retrieve password. So that scenario title is just gonna go in here. Okay, that's my scenario title. With me so far? Your next,
Yeah, got it.
Your next thing, you want to start with, like classic one, we have what? Precondition? So what's the keyword for precondition in Gherkin?
Given.
Given. You write given, this has to be capital G, otherwise it's not going to work. And then you put a space and you kind of summarize this. That's your choice, how you want to do it. So I would say given a user with username tech files demo, and I'm not going to write the rest. You got the point. And password let's do it this way, even general. Given a user with valid username / password. Notice I didn't even write down what the username and password is. This
Important? Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because now you're going into automation.
Okay.
You're going to have some code behind it, and that code is going to have these new passwords in there.
Okay, got it.
And I'm going to show you how to embed that. So for now, you don't even have to add that there for the user because it's going to be automated. Your next step is you're done with the precondition. You start right here, which is test steps. What kind of keyword do I need in Gherkin to describe test steps? The actions.
Action.
When. Capital W, E-N. So you start with the when, and you say, when user goes to the text file site.
I'm hearing echo.
Yeah, I think, Tony, there might be an echo on your end. Okay. And now, any questions on how I wrote this? When user goes to the text file site?
No.
Okay, good job. Immediately jump into the expected condition and write that with a then, because that's the validation. You got an action. This is what user is actually going to do. And with the then word, this is where you're supposed to say what should follow. Okay. Text files. Site should display. Notice I'm not changing anything. I am only writing it differently. I can eliminate this entire table. There's another echo going on somewhere.
Middle, your
Yes?
we cannot hear clearly. It's echo.
Yeah, there's an echo, right? Okay. It's not that much.
I see that if mic is sound is coming out from both Stein and Loretta. So I think one need to be mute.
She's pretty far away. I think she's in the sunroom, and I'm in one of the.
Okay, now it sounds better.
Okay, maybe she muted then. In that case, okay, that's fine. All right.
Sorry.
Next. Oh yeah. Loretta, you can just unmute and then talk and then mute yourself back on if that's the case. We'll try to figure this out next time. Shobus, can you give me the next one right here? How would I write this in Gherkin with a keyword?
And
you don't have to put an and until you have back-to-back then.
Oh, okay. Then I think we need to put when again.
Correct. So you will put when.
Valid user ID and password is given.
It has to have an action verb.
Oh.
And you want to be very specific. Well, not always. But you can rephrase this. So and use the word user. When user enters valid email address, now what word am I going to use? Am I going to validate already? If you want to, you can. You could say then email.
You can do an and, right?
Absolutely. You could skip this right here, right now. You could skip this and say, I don't need to worry about this. I don't care about this. We only care about valid username and password, go fetch me whether the dashboard displays or not. Okay.
Exactly.
So let me just do it 2 ways and you can compare and see. If I were to just word for word put a when statement next to these guys and put a then statement next to these guys, that would work. That would be fine. So let me just do it that, and then I'll show you my own way. So I would say then email address should be entered. I would say then when user enters valid password, so it's like a sentence. Valid password. Then password should be entered. Okay. When user clicks on sign in button, take a look at this. Then I'm just adding extra things, okay? Then I'm gonna add this right here, dashboard page should display. But remember, what if I wanted to go in here and I really wanted to verify that am I in the right user's account? I would have to click here, go to edit profile, and then I would have to look for the email address that I entered. Does that show up as the username? So I can add that extra validation just in here if I have the time to do that. So I could just add saying then, because this is the validation, I am not doing any action. I want to just verify. Then username, then the same username or that username should, or provided username should display in profile page. Okay.
Can you do back-to-back then statements?
And that's where we come in. If you do back-to-back then statement, your automation will not fail. But does it sound right? Not so much. If you see a back-to-back, then go ahead and change that to what? The second one to and. Change the second one to an and. Okay. Now take a look at a bit of modification on this test case in Gherkin. Instead of me adding validation for every single one of these steps, really it's not needed, guys. In automation, you don't need to validate whether email is inserted or not. Your test case is going to fail if the email is not inserted. Your test case is going to fail when you click on the submit button anyway. And that failure is going to tell you that there's a bug. You caught the bug. You got a trophy. Every time your test case fails for a bug, you got a trophy. Every time you have to automate a step, it takes time and energy. So you have to pick and choose what do you want to automate, and you want to keep it to a bare bone minimum so you can work on the next automation task. So here's how I would write this. Given a valid user, and notice I don't even need to say with valid credentials. When I say given a valid user, I am automatically assuming that a proper username and password should be entered. And when you go work for a company, you might see something like that and they don't have any information. But information is hidden, and I'll show you when I take you to that technology how to retrieve it. When user enters username, I am not going to validate this step. I'm going to straight to and, not going to say when. If I want to say when user enters password, that becomes two back-to-back when. So to keep a nice little flow, I'm going to say given a valid user, when user enters username and I don't even have to say user anymore, and enters password, guess what? And clicks on the sign in button. There you go, guys. One validation. Then dashboard page should display. This is.
You can put
Say that again, I'm sorry?
You can put 2 and.
You can put 2, you can put 100 ands. As many as you feel like is needed to get you to that last step of clicking the submit button. Have you ever seen a form where there's a ton of input where you have to put your name, your credit card information, your date of birth, you have to put your address, and then at the very end there's a submit button? For you to validate that feature, you're going to have a lot of and enters address, okay, and enters social security number, and enters I don't know, driver's license, yeah, and selects male as gender, okay, whatever, whatnot, folks, anything. You don't need to validate every single time you're entering something. Come on. Not needed. It can be validated just by clicking on that submit button, and what are you supposed to see? That the form was submitted, that the dashboard got you in, are you in the right account? One validation can cover every one of these steps. With me so far?
Yes.
And that's where your intelligence comes in. You are the designer of this test case. You have to look at it from automation perspective. And it's not mature yet because I haven't taken you there. But when I'm going to take you there, and you're going to see what code is needed for me to enter this, what code is needed for me to validate whether the dashboard displayed, you're going to be smart enough to say, I don't want to put another step to just validate this guy or enter a password. That's too much work. Why don't I just validate this? It's kind of like this. If you are supposed to, you're walking through a road, right? Or think this way. You're driving from Grapevine to Irving, and you want to go to Walmart in Irving, for example. And on the road, you're supposed to look for certain certain like billboards and certain things, and you have to make a right turn and left turn, and so forth. You have to make sure that you're going past Chili's, and you have to take a right turn on where McDonald's is, and then finally you end up in Walmart. you are actually, you can just validate your work, whether you have reached to Walmart or not. You don't need to walk into Chili's and do a testing there to see if Chili's is, they're cooking or not. You don't need to go into a McDonald's and make sure it is the right McDonald's or not. That's not your idea there. But guess what? If there was no McDonald's there, you would have never made it to Walmart. So you would have failed, and that failure would have taken you to that step you failed, which could have been that McDonald's. And you could have seen, okay, what happened to that McDonald's field? Or what happened to that address field or the password field that it failed there? Maybe it's not taking any password. Maybe the field just disappeared. It doesn't exist anymore. Whatever that is, you don't have to validate every single step. You can just do the essential ones and move on. Questions?
No, it's pretty straightforward. I like it.
All right. Now let's go ahead and finish up this one, okay? Here's a couple more things that goes in, and I'm gonna give you an example, and we'll work it real time. And I'm not gonna demo you this test case format anymore. We're now, from now on, going to use Gherkin to write scenarios, and from there we're going to practice automation later on. I'm gonna give you a home class activity shortly. And then we'll be done. This time I'm not going to give you 30 minutes because you guys are smart. You can do it much faster. But here's the site that you need to look for. And there are some features in here. Let me go to dashboard. And show you how am I going to do this. So you are now the QA analyst and you are in a meeting. And they told you that they're adding this something called add contact, right? So they're adding this feature called add contact. With me so far?
Yes.
You are, as a QA, to validate, to test this feature. So what are some questions you should ask to better understand this feature? What would you ask?
What is the name?
Like what are the parameters or symbols allowed?
Correct. That would be a very detailed question, but if you were to ask a very general question, to understand what this feature is supposed to do.
What side we should go?
Where should the button be? Under what tab? Things like that?
Actually, it was more a tricky question. I'm sorry. It's basically, what is the feature supposed to do?
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
And in some case, you may ask two. In my company, I asked the second question. Who has access to this? Who can access? The reason we ask this extra question is because different customers have different levels of authorities. And some customers will see this page, other customers won't see that. If we don't allow them, they don't. They have different roles and permissions. But in this particular site, anybody log in will see all of these. So this question is eliminated. You're welcome to add more questions based on your company, but the essential question you should ask, what is this feature supposed to do? Looking at this, where it says add contact, you want to take a guess? What is this feature supposed to do? It has all these fields here. you are playing around with this. Who can tell me what kind of testing is this?
Oh,
Signing up to the tech files.
no, it's man,
I don't know what this is. I just came to this page. I'm just checking things out.
yeah,
I'm typing exploratory testing, correct. This type of testing is called exploratory testing. You don't have any idea. You don't have a test case formed. Your first time seeing this, you're just playing around with it, trying to figure out what this feature is supposed to do. Nobody told you what it's supposed to do. You're trying to figure this out on your own. That's called exploratory testing. Now, if you are exploratory testing this, you see there's a name, email, blah, blah, blah. And then you can click add contact. Then you get this. This one says add contact right there. What does it do? It adds a contact. It adds a person on the list. Okay. It would add a name, maybe add a customer. With me so far?
Yes.
It could be anybody. It could be a customer. It could be a user. It adds somebody to it. All right. So if I go in here and I type in my name here, Stein Masergy, phone number, address, and let's say I don't want to give all that, and I hit submit. Let me put a different name because I may already have it there. John Doe. John Doe Company, I don't know, Tech Files. And email is jdoe, and then that and that. And I didn't add these. I'm just messing around with it. And I hit submit. What happens? It gave me something.
It took it.
It took it. It accepted it. It didn't give me a success message, notice?
Yeah.
But just by seeing this image right here with this number I provided, it didn't complain.
Yeah.
So it gave me it created a profile for somebody here. I could probably add an image there. It's working. So I'm looking at it and getting some ideas. Contact notes, I could type something in here. Test notes, save. That didn't complain. Test activity. I'm exploratory testing, post. And doing something. Oh, look. It posted right here some sort of comment. Okay, so I am making a comment or a note, and then do that again. It even gave me the dates, time when, and all of this is getting commented. And if I go to this tab where it says list contact, that's actually the list of contacts that should be there. So I should be able to look up whether this contact was created or not, added into this list. So if I click here, oh look, there's the first one. Isn't that the one I created?
Yeah.
So it worked. Okay, it worked. So nobody told me what the feature was. Let's say you just walk in, they just tell you go work, do this or something, and you go in and your team tells you that hey, we need a testing for this site. Nobody has any test cases there, and we need coverage. They're going to use the word coverage, that we need to cover these features so that we test it, make sure they don't break with other things that are going on. So you quickly came here, you tested it, you did exploratory testing, and you notice that if I create a user, if positive test case, if I put in the user name and all that, and hit submit, I get a page that displays my username. That's one. And second, I can click on this list contacts, and that contact that I just created should appear here. Or I should be able to search that contact here. If it didn't appear, I can just go in here, type in that username or email that I provided, and search. Notice the search function is broken. It doesn't work. Let me go back again. Let me try with John Doe. Search. Hey, that field works. But if I search with email, it doesn't. But also it says search by name, so we need to search by name on this one. But that could have been a bug. Anyway, it kicked me out. There you go. All right. With that idea, we're going to create a test case, Gherkin test case. So here's the scenario. And before you do scenario, if this is the first time for this particular page you are ever doing anything, you want to start off with something called the word feature. You want to put a colon, and feature is nothing but typically what this page is supposed to do. What is this page supposed to do?
Create a contact.
Correct. Create a contact, or you could even give it a name of the page, which is add contact page.
Add contact.
Or add contact. Okay, add contact. You can even say page. All right. Next thing, you got your feature. Sometimes they have something called background. Okay. And this is not heavily used. If you have a user that is being used over and over, like a user information, you could put in your user information here, like username, techfilesdemo@gmail.com, password, ABC123. Again, it's not heavily used. We don't use this background stuff. Okay, it's optional. You do have to use for automation. You must have feature. The background optional. For that same page where you have this feature, let me start that up so I'll show you in real situation how it looks like. After you're done with that, you only write the feature for that page once. That's it. You can have multiple test cases, but feature will appear only once. Here's the feature page, and our first test case is a positive test case. Scenario. Add a contact. That's it. You don't need to be so detailed. You just say add a contact because that's what you're doing. Now we're going to write up. Okay. So Tony, give me the first one. What word should I start with first? Always.
Given.
Correct. Remember, it's given, when, then. Given, when, then. And actually, after given, it's just when, then, or and then. It kind of goes on like that. So given a valid user logged in. Do you see how much this statement is already assuming? Why did I do that? Why didn't I go through the login steps already in here? Why did I skip that?
You wouldn't have access to this page if you weren't a valid user logged in.
That's one. Give me another. Why didn't I want to specify those?
Because you'd already did.
You're not testing
You're
that, or
not
you already
testing that
previously
feature.
tested it?
Absolutely yes. I have already tested the login functionality on another test case. I am not going to do all those steps on add a contact. I just want to test add a contact. So when given a valid user logged in, that one statement is the automation step is going to take you through every single that login process and bring you to this dashboard page. Okay. So we're going to have code behind this that's going to bring you to this dashboard page. And then we're going to get started. Okay. We already done to the dashboard, it's done. Now, what would be my next step to get to that? To get to that page? It will be an action.
When?
So you would start with when. When what?
When click CRM.
Yes. So because the user has to click CRM to open and click on add contact to go in here. From now on, in Gherkin, we're not gonna use the click word in here. We're gonna make it very general. Okay. That's what was taught to me. That you want to be very vague.
When user goes to contact.
Yes.
Or when user goes to add contact page.
Yes. I have used the word goes to. Also, they use the word navigation. Because you are actually using this is called side navigation.
Okay.
So often you will see it says when user navigates, and because this is a module, okay, a module holds different pages. Transactions is a module, holds different pages. Sales is a module, holds different pages. One thing you can do, in short, you could say goes to name the module CRM and then put an arrow and then say add contact page.
Okay.
When user navigates to CRM or add contacts page, you are basically wrapping several steps in here. You are saying click on CRM button and click on add contact button. With me so far?
Yeah, these two steps that you put in, the click on CRM and click on add contact, are they necessary, or you're just showing that just to
We're
show
just
us?
showing you that like that's what you're saving.
Okay.
Like you're saving time by just like condensing.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good.
So this is gonna become your Java code later.
Okay.
But on the top, it's gonna look like this. Okay. So let me give you an example right here. This is real world. The code that you're looking at right now is the real code. And what format of test case are you seeing here? Is it a classic test case or Gherkin?
Gherkin.
Gherkin. Just given then when. Given when then.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Oops. I froze it. I clicked too many buttons, so it's not liking it right now.
It's fine.
Okay, just forget that. If I can minimize it out of it. No, I need to hard close it. But before I hard close it, I want you to look at this. There's that scenario. There's a given, when, then, and then when, and then again, then. It depends on how you want to do this, how the feature is behaving. Based on that, you design your stuff. Notice where it says user goes to SD when secure. That's the module. Then policy package page. So with that statement, there's code there. It's going to take you to SD-WAN module, and then it's also going to click on policy package page, and then you are going to be on that page ready to do whatever you need to do.
Got it.
Okay. And is this font visible? I was gonna, that the other window, I was gonna try to increase the font.
No, it's fine.
Okay, it decided to shut itself down. Okay, close this window. Let me hard close it. Okay, so industry standard, this is what you're supposed to do, but I don't want to take you there right now. So I'm just gonna do it the baby way, which is when user clicks on add contact, CRM button, and user clicks on add contact page, this is now a good time for you to add a validation. Why? Because you want to check to make sure that you are on the right page or not before you start. This was a major group of actions. Could I explain that well?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So now that you are on a new page, you have gone through this navigation, this would be a good pit stop for you to say, before I do anything else, let me put a then contacts page or add contact page should display. Because someday you're going to see that nothing displays. I've seen that happen. I've seen a bug where it took you to a different page because they put a bad link on this button and it took it to a different page. Those are bugs. Now, once you have arrived in this page, you move on to writing these steps right here. Again, ideally, industry standard, they're not going to write Gherkin like this. When user enters full name, which is this one, Jenny Smith, and user enters or types company name. You see the picture? And user enters email. Man, that's a lot. They don't do it this way. They just write when user fills in the add contact form. With me on this?
Yes.
Because with that much, you are already being told, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and type in all this. Fill in the information. And click on submit. button.
Then
With me so far?
yes.
Yes.
So from now on, we're gonna use this kind of shortcut. And instead of going through this whole thing, and if I give you homework, you don't need to write, oh, enter full name or enter company name, enter email. And I don't want to give you homework where I need to tell you step by step. I'm just going to give you this from now on. You are supposed to be able to read this and understand how to execute this test case. Okay? I may be able to write something like this. When user fills in the add contact form with random data, and that's good enough. That means you are supposed to put in, make up the data, whatever you want, email, whatever, phone number, address, and then you hit submit. And follow these steps, okay? Any questions so far?
No, not so far.
Good job. All right, so as I click on submit button, and again, you don't have to put in everything. I think it's a name, maybe email, jsmith@gmail.com. Let's see if it's gonna kick me out if I just do that. Submit. It's working. So at bare bone minimum, name and email, and I got this. Okay. What will be the validation statement here, Desmond? Then
contact page should be created, or then contact should be created.
Yeah.
Or
a new contact should display. New
should display.
Then the new contact info should display. Or then created contact information or email should display. All right. Remember that I went into this list contacts?
Yes.
And I validated whether this Jenny Smith was displayed there?
Yes.
So you can add that too. If I were to go into list contact page, would that be an action or validation just to go to that page?
Action.
Action. So would that be a when or a then?
When.
When. Then in that case, how would I write this? When user, kind of mimic this.
Yeah. When user goes to CRM button and clicks,
and you can
list
write like when user goes to CRM module. If you don't want to use that symbol, this is fine too. Personal preference. There's no rules. User goes to CRM module, list contact page. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't want to do that and you want to write it very bare bone basic, user clicks on CRM button and user clicks on list contact page, that would be fine too. It's up to you. We're gonna put those two sentences together and you said it in once, saying when user goes to CRM module list contacts page. That means now you are here. List contacts page. Who can tell me what kind of validation should we do here?
Well, should you validate now or should you then do another when statement, because then you have to enter in created contact information in search bar, right?
Yes, that would be a validation that we need to do. Is there any other validation you want to do here before you do that?
Make sure
it should be open.
Yeah.
Yes. Every time you navigate to a page, you should validate whether you are in the right page or not.
Got
Just like we did this for add contact page. When we clicked on the add contact page, we immediately validate that when that add contact page displayed or not before we move into any other validation. So since we just switched a page, user goes to CRM module list contact page, immediately stop and validate, then list contact page should display.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what are my steps to validate the user?
When created user name is input into search bar.
Okay. In shorter, same thing. You can also write saying search created user using filter field or something.
When search created user, okay.
That already means that you created this user Jenny Smith, and you're going to use this search filter input field to search with that created name. Or if you want to be more specific, you could say type. When user types, you could do this. User enters created username into search field and clicks on search button. Okay, this is fine too, but the other one is better. You want to be less specific in here if you can get away with it.
Okay.
So user searches for that created customer. That's enough. You could say when user searches, and a tester can easily understand how to search it. Searches for the new created contact. Then what?
Then created user page should display.
You're already here. So if you are searching for Jenny Smith,
then contact name should appear on list.
Absolutely, that's awesome. The new contact should display in the table.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions?
Okay. No.
This is it. If you have this, you take this, and that's your starting point for automation. So let me open that back up and show you. So there's the automation. And I want to take you to a very basic automation. We didn't even have this when I joined.
Is that Jenkins or what is the software?
It's called IntelliJ.
Oh, okay.
Take a look at this. There's your Gherkin feature. And it's a login page. And there's your scenario. And the scenario outline is another option for Cucumber. If I do scenario outline, I can add an example here. And I can take data out of this. Don't panic yet. I'm going to give you hands-on experience in 2 months from now. I'm just giving you the big picture of where I'm leading you from this to that. Notice, given an external user with valid username, actually, this username with these symbols is picking up this username from here. And this password, picking up the password from here. An account number, picking up it from here. When user goes to Masergy site, I'm putting immediately a validation, then login page should be displayed. When user enters credentials, that is taking these credentials, username and password, and entering into the web application. When then dashboard page should display. So after entering the dashboard page should display. And page should display matching user credentials. So I'm validating the dashboard page should have the same username as this guy. Okay. When user logs out of ISC, so I'm clicking on the log out button. After log out, what page should display?
The login page.
It would take me correct. It would take me back to the login page. So I am validating, then login page should be displayed. And then my test case is over. This was just done to check, make sure user can go in and user can go out. Okay. And that's a Gherkin right there is the same thing you just learned. Tony, you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, I don't want you to panic, but I'm going to take you a little bit deeper inside this. If I hit control button and hover over, it becomes a link, notice. And I can actually go into this and look at the Java code there, which I'll teach you later. For example, let me see. User logs out of ISC. Let me show you this. User logs out. So if I go into user logout, look at this. Don't read too much. Just look into this. Click on the username on top banner. And that's this right here. That's the username and password. And when I'm trying to log out, user logs out, click on username on top banner right there. If I click on username on top banner, then it gives me this logout button. And then the Java code is clicking on logout button, and I click on logout and it logs me out. You see how these small steps are kind of embedded into this bigger umbrella of steps?
Yeah.
And that's how you want to design your test case in Gherkin. You don't want to spell it out how to. That is the implementation of these statements. You can just be vague as long as people understand that this is what they're supposed to do. And most of the time, we just write this much and that's it. And that will give us the whole thing. Now, yeah, go ahead.
So Gherkin is used for planning and design, and for implementation, it's Java and Selenium or whatever you use.
Absolutely, yes. Most companies don't have this technology to click here and to the steps right here. But they only have these steps. So when somebody looks at their test case, they see gibberish. They don't understand it. But Gherkin connects everybody, because your business analyst should be able to read this piece of cake. Your executive team, product manager who doesn't know any coding, will be able to read this and understand everything. But you can click here and go into the code. You will understand your code. Other people won't understand it. But most companies don't have the expertise to integrate this with the code behind it. Therefore, they're trying to move into this, and anybody knows this Gherkin language, and then later I'll show you how to connect this statement into your code. You're gonna be cream of the crop, and they're gonna want you. So let me kick off this automation to show you how it works. So all I have to do is, this is done. I just have to put a run word right here and click on run, and it's gonna do its thing. Just bear with me. Don't worry about anything else. What it's doing right now is building, compiling. Shortly, it's gonna kick off a browser automatically. And it's gonna start executing one step at a time, and if it fails, it will fail, or pass it, pass it. So this information is telling me that it's compiling. Let me make sure that I'm connected. All right, it's gonna kick off the browser right now. There you go. The browser opened. And under that given statement, I have the code for signing in. It goes to the dashboard page. It's validating dashboard page displayed. And then it's going to click on this Coleman or the username and then log out. It's taking a little while. The test case is waiting for something. If it takes that long, generally it's going to fail. And if it doesn't find something, it's going to wait for 60 seconds, almost a minute, before it actually quits, because it's going to try to keep on finding whatever it's looking for and give up after 60 seconds or so. Okay, so it failed. And if I scroll over, it's gonna say fail somewhere. Let's see. If I go there, that says test started. And the report comes in, says error. Test executed 1. Test with error 1. So if it was passing, it would say test pass, and it would be 1 right here. And I can go farther into this and find out where the test case failed. That I'm going to teach you in about 2 months or so, 2.5 months. but I don't want to go there right now. I just wanted to give you a overview of what's coming and what are you about to see. But that's all there is to it, folks. I think you got half the gist of the story, which is a classic test case writing or Gherkin test case writing, whichever is your company is using. And I don't know if you're going to get this one or the other, but if you want to move your company into this Gherkin way, you can certainly do that. In the interview, you want to boast about that you know both ways of doing this. Certainly will help you getting that job. Other than that, we're not gonna add any more concepts to this. I think it was a lot, and the 30 minutes activity that I wanted you to do, we're gonna make that a homework. So here's what we're gonna do for homework. Any questions before I move into the homework?
No.
Okay.
No.
So your homework is going to be to develop a test case in Gherkin. You've already done a regular one, and that's pretty, you found it pretty easy. And so here's how you're going to do this, and I'm going to have more information on this on the site. So let me go here. On this website, I'll post your homework detail on this page, Test Development Management. And if you click here, go into this slide, and go to the very last slide. Maybe tomorrow, you're going to see something that says homework. And the detail of the homework is going to be here. But I'll explain you what you have to do. The idea of the homework is going to be that you go to this resources. At the very bottom, you will see a page name called resources. And if you open this, there's this link here. It says practice site. And it has the username and the password. You click here, it's going to take you to this practice site. And you type in that username and password. Okay. And I'm going to have a list of these things for you to do exploratory testing and come up with a Gherkin test case. So I've already done this one, which is add contact. You will get to choose whichever one you want, but you want to keep that add contact piece right here that we just did as your example. You want to mimic it as much as possible. I am going to post all of these in this site as notes. I'll show you where. Just one second. Let me cross this things off. Right here. So if you go to QA Analyst and go to Test Development Management, here's the video. Right underneath that, I already posted the test anatomy for the classic test case right here. You're gonna see another section down here that says notes or class notes. And you're gonna see all of these things that we did in the class. Everything I wrote, I'm going to post it in here. So you can use that as your example. So what do you have to do for homework? Your homework is gonna be to mainly do exploratory testing on transactions and pick up one of these that you want to create a test case for or a scenario for. For example, if you go to new deposit, notice add deposit. This page is not working. Something wrong with this page. It's supposed to have a form there, but new expense. Let's see. Come on. Wow, I guess it broke. Transfer money. Yeah, something happened to this, to skip that one. Invoices, this is working. So you can create a test case for add invoices. Notice there's a button on the right side. You click on add invoices. And this is a form. You can choose anything, write anything, and put in an invoice number, your choice, and then click on add product or service. Something pops up and shows you something. You click that. And you can also go to another page somewhere here that you might find this displayed. You can save the invoice. That can do something. At least one item is required, so just exploratorily figure out what is needed. Item maybe somewhere here, I don't know, but you get the point. Maybe what, a number here. Quantity, oh, add product or service. You check one of this and submit that. This is not the best site, but it's great for practicing. Select, and you selected a product. Maybe put in a price, $10, and save invoice. And there you go, you got something. And you can validate whether something that you entered showed up or not. There's the item, the $10. I just want you to use Gherkin to do this. And when you have done it, next week, Sunday, let's compare, and I'll look at it. I'll tell you, give you feedback on how you did, where we can make corrections. And you're not going to lose this test case that you're going to develop. Actually, I'm going to take you and make you automate those test cases when we get you to that level. Similar way, you can check these features right here. Bank cash, there's something called new account. You can put in a name and put a balance, a description, create a new account. List accounts is supposed to show up in here after you create it, so validate that. There's this products. You can add a new product list. These are list of products. Here's a form. You can add a product to submit. There's so much more in here for you to explore. Any questions?
No.
Okay, so let me do that. Let me have all these details in the site ready for you to work on. And if you have any questions, you can text me for now. I am creating a WhatsApp group, so you can post your questions in the group and any of us can help you out. We'll practice that as we go along from it. Next week's class is going to be Sunday, same time again, 9 o'clock. Hopefully we won't have any issues. Any questions before we end the class?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and I'll see you next weekend.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.